Bury me away. I am the fallen sun. Bury me away. I am the daughter. Say to the Lord and life one last time. Hallowed be thy name as life and God. I was here on earth, but somehow just crossed over. And I'm looking back to you one last time. And I'm right here. I'm following Jordan and that river, hoping for the memory. Home and best for you. Right where it's time, right now. Dear God and family, please bury me away. Please bury me away. Bury me away. I'll hold into life right here. Not giving back, not failing me, 'cause one last time, it's my voice to all of you. Bury me away. That is my prayer. Just falling down. Please bury me away. Truth, logic, common sense, that gut feeling, and yes, even a little psychoanalysis, as we are once again together, you and I, to discuss Lori Daybell's trial right now. Chad's is down the road. That song that I butchered, because it's an absolutely beautiful song, was written by one of the Rays on here. It came to a respectful spiritual self, to think and compose lyrics, to sing as JJ and Tylee, in every sense, a calling out to the need of the spirits. So came the piano and voice, Bury Me Away by Mark McGarry. And I don't know what kind of sheet music Mr. M was looking for on that, but he left it in the comments on our channel. And it broke my heart, but it also was such a beautiful song. And it had so much love in it. And as we all know, JJ and Tylee have still not been put to rest. And I think we need to remember that as we keep moving forward in this absolutely devastating trial. Good evening, everybody. Vix Tex, Gloria Fritz, Okie Dokie, Adair, Treva Levesque. Hello, everyone. I wanted to start this out. Y'all know me. I've got my way about myself. I'm not a very good singer, but my heart is in it. The bottom line is when we discuss what we are going to discuss tonight, you're going to see a difference. from the song that was sung at the beginning with all the love and remembrance of Tylee and JJ. What we are going to discuss tonight is this last week's testimony, but we're going to put it in a lens of what we learned anew, because many of the Rays on here know we've been over all legal documents. We've been over all law enforcement reports. We've seen the interviews, whichever ones were released anyway. We never saw David Warwick's interview. Don't you find that a little bit interesting? And the only interview that we really saw on Melanie Pawlowski was over the attempt on Brandon's life. We never saw her being interviewed at all. And in fact, it's my opinion, my theory, that she would not meet with police over this case. She is slated to testify in this trial. One has to wonder whether she is going to testify this week. But I want to go over all of this week, over the things that we found out that we didn't know. And maybe they weren't huge differences in what the Rays on here understood to be factual, empirical evidence that we had already sifted through over this last 2 years. So, you know how I do things. I have to put it in narrative form. I've always demonstrated myself in this vein. See no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil when I think of David Warwick and Melanie Gibb. Now, we are going to focus on David Warwick, but we are going to also use application in what Melanie Gibb said the week before, along with what they said in Chad's preliminary hearing, what Melanie Gibb said in 2 of her police interviews. And make no mistake, y'all, the state does have a lot of evidence, and the trial is going well. And we cannot expect every little aspect of everything we've learned to be brought out in this trial. But there's certain things that haven't been brought out, or new things added that were never said before. And I'm just curious about it. But in order to understand where I'm going with all of this, see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, it's a saying that's often used to refer to a lack of moral responsibility on the part of people who refuse to acknowledge impropriety, they look the other way, or they feign ignorance. And if this doesn't sum David Warwick and Melanie Gibb up to a T, and the rest of these cult members, I'm telling you, y'all, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Did David Warwick, Melanie Gibb, did they see any evil in any of this when they were hanging out with Chad and Lori and Zulema and Alex and all them? Did they hear any evil? Y'all think that Melanie Gibb and David Warwick heard any evil at all? And how about this, y'all? Did Melanie Gibb and David Warwick themselves speak any evil? We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to get to a lot of your comments, because I told all of y'all that we were going to get together this weekend. The Rays on here, I know y'all been keeping notes, been probably mulling things over in your minds, and I am very, very enthusiastic about getting to your comments. Trevor Levesque says David Warwick is going deaf. Well, he sure must have got him one of them new fangled hearing aids, because he didn't have a problem at all. So we are going to talk about David Warwick and Melanie Gibb, but I do want to touch on a couple of other things of other witnesses this week before we go into it. So we will get to the comments, y'all, but you know how I roll. I gotta get it. I gotta get it while I'm thinking it and while I can say it. All right. Now, when they had that dean of students from BYU get on the stand, he confirms that Tylee had never enrolled or filled out applications to go to that school. And you might say, well, KJ, everybody, that's no big deal. But let's look Let's look. I mean, it basically says his testimony. You would think, oh, he's just proven that Lori lied about Tylee going to BYU. But if you listen to the cross-examination, you'll see with that, and also JJ's child care situation, the defense was trying to say that in terms of JJ and Tylee, that Lori had a long-term goal in mind. She told that one daycare worker, I might need you here. I'm going to need you here in about a month or whatever. The bottom line is that the defense was trying to say that Lori must have at the last minute. Something must have happened at the last minute. Or why would Lori say to this girl, I'm going to need you, if she was going to kill JJ? You see what I'm saying? And also, the defense talked about to the principal that enrolled JJ in Rexburg, asked on cross-examination, talked about, well, have you ever had somebody come in and enroll their child for only 3 weeks? Basically letting the jurors know that Lori intended. Now, we know that's not true, but this is where the defense is going. Asking that principal that Lori had enrolled JJ, and remember about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we talked about why even do that? When she got into Rexburg, nobody knew who they were. Why do that? Then, of course, we figured it out. The reason why is because she had to keep the benefits flowing. But the defense is saying that because Lori wanted that girl to keep in touch, and the girl even said on the stand that, yes, I was supposed to come back and everything. And then the principal confirming that JJ had been enrolled, and Lori never said nothing about, well, he's only going to be enrolled for a few weeks. The defense is trying to, and you know, they're going to. They're going to come down to it, y'all. And y'all remember hearing it from me. When the defense does their closing argument, they're going to say, if she had a premeditated plan, a conspiracy to commit murder on JJ, then why even enroll him? Why get the daycare worker thinking that she was going to be coming back? So I wanted to bring that out. And remember, when we got together at the end of the week during this trial, I said I'm only going to be talking about things that have come to me or are new or something to that effect. Hi there, Vicki McNutt. Yes, Deborah Tutela, Lori is an accomplished liar. But what I'm trying to say is that if you look past what we already know, most of us anyway, that you've got to look and see how the defense is going at this case, because they have to come at it somehow. And they really do with Zulema and David Warwick. Why they were kind of offity, Thomas was offity with Melanie Gibb, I'll never know. The bottom line is there was so much missed opportunity in all of that. And the reason I feel like it was a missed opportunity was because, you know, if we could have just learned more, we could have put more pieces together. It isn't about the defense having one over on the state's witnesses. We want Lori we want her ass nailed to the wall, okay? We all know that. Elaine McKenzie says he was already marked as a dark spirit by then. Hopefully the jury won't buy that BS. If someone is charged for perjury, is it a trial offense? How is it done? Adair, what happens is if somebody goes on the stand and the defense knows and has a way to show empirically through the evidence that that person is lying on the stand, what they'll do is they'll go and they'll try to impeach their testimony. From there, if they're impeached, there can be contempt of court, but most of the time, impeaching somebody's credibility on the stand really just, the state will be like, well, that one was a strikeout, you know. It's a waste of time once the jurors think there's no credibility. And I guess the bigger question is, what are in the minds of these jurors right now? Remember, y'all, in voir dire, they were told no matter what their beliefs are, you can't hold that against them. But you and I both know that just listening to David Warwick, and the way that he talked about, his beliefs, and the way that Zulema talked about her beliefs. And of course, y'all got Melanie Gibb, who really didn't really let anyone know anything, really, if you think about it. But we'll get to it. So let's start with David Warwick's testimony. And I'm going to just go through this. I'll be talking a little bit, y'all, but just bear with me. Many of y'all probably already know some of this stuff, but this is from your own listening of the audio, okay? Okay, so these are the things that I picked out. Lori wanted Melanie Gibb to meet David. Lori wanted Melanie Gibb, and Melanie Gibb and David Warwick wanted to meet Lori. Melanie Gibb asked David Warwick. This is David Warwick's testimony, y'all. And they met at Lori's house in Arizona. And at the time that David Warwick met Lori, this was the time that Lori was a widow. This was after Charles Vallow was murdered. And it was in the first week of August that they met. And it was all Chad, Alex, Melanie P, Zulema, Lori, Chad. He met them all in August of 2019. And this, at the time, David Warwick was Melanie's boyfriend. On September 20th, David Warwick came to Lori's apartment for the weekend. And this was all explained. This was stuff we didn't know. Number one, I didn't never hear David Warwick talk about he had multiple reasons for coming to Rexburg. In Chad's preliminary hearing, we never heard anything about him visiting his son in Pocatello or, anything like that. So that was something we didn't know about. And he was also there to go to some conference. And the other reason was for a podcast. So he gives 3 reasons for being there that weekend. And this was going to be a podcast that they hoped would make the circuit, I guess, so that they could build up their name. And Preparing a People was a group. David Warwick says they were not a group. They were just a company or whatever. But they promoted people. In terms of, advertising, and they let them come to their conferences. And one way to do that was through, how much are you getting exposure with these podcasts? We know before all this went down, people like Julie Rowe was making it big time on the podcast scene. Lori was, and a lot of these cult members were listening to Julie Rowe over and over again. And so during Warwick's testimony, he says that he saw Chad at Lori's apartment that weekend about 4 times. And again, y'all, if you go back to Chad's preliminary hearing, him and Melanie Gibb both, they don't, I think Melanie Gibb says she saw Chad 2 times, and David Warwick said he saw him every day. So there's something not right about that. But then again, as we move forward, the bottom line is they really curtailed their testimony. As many of y'all know, Melanie Gibbs sounds so coached and rehearsed, it's not even funny. Another thing out of David Warwick's testimony that really bothered me, because this was not brought out before, is, we know that the last photograph of JJ, he was sitting on the couch in Lori's apartment on September 22nd of 2019, and he was wearing red pajamas. But David Warwick says on the stand that when Alex brought JJ in that evening, he was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and even went so far as to say, I think his shorts were camouflage. Now, the bottom line is I don't believe any of this stuff about Alex taking him upstairs and everything. I see past that. I don't believe any of that ever happened. I just don't. There's too many things that they haven't been able to keep straight about all this. I honestly, the raison here know, I believe JJ was murdered on September 22nd of 2019. And Obviously, we know through testimony that Lori had a special reason for that September 22nd date. That was when she saw Moroni and all that. Remember that? Let's see, where was that at? That was September 22nd was a significant date for Lori. That is when Moroni appeared at the temple to Lori. And I remember when Nate had put that Lori was at the temple, I think he must have got mixed up. The year before, September 22nd, this is where she says she saw Moroni in the temple, because the temple is closed on Sundays, and I've confirmed that, and many have let me know that. The bottom line is that that September 22nd, 2019 date was significant. And this is still going with my theories and hypothesis. Of course, we know that David Warwick just coincidentally overnight on September 22nd, he said it was early morning on the 23rd, he had a terrible, terrible nightmare. A terrible nightmare. And this goes back to what several have said. This isn't coming from me. This is other comments. Why would David Warwick want a blessing from Chad in the middle of the night if he did not believe anything about Chad holding the position or of leader of the firstborn, or that he thought he had some kind of special powers or whatever? And then if you want to attach to that, David Warwick knew that Chad and Lori were committing adultery. Why would he want a blessing in the middle of the night from someone that he says on the stand he didn't believe? So that right there kind of says it all. And another thing that we did not hear about, Rays, is David Warwick says on the stand that he wanted to, when he got up the next morning, he himself wanted to give JJ a blessing. So, I mean, if David Warwick needed someone else to give him a blessing, but he himself can give blessings, it don't add up. But none of this ever has, because these people are liars. They are liars. It goes back to this whole thing about they don't want to fess up. They don't want to accept moral responsibility. They want to feign ignorance. They don't want to at all accept the responsibility for their part in any of this. But why would they? Because if they did come out and tell the truth, the bottom line, y'all, is that they would be in jail cells too. And y'all know it, and I know it. The state tried to do their best to go easy on David Warwick, along with Melanie Gibb and Zulema. But under cross-examination, I wanted to know this, if any of the Rays know who this person is, because I think I've only heard this name one other time. But David Warwick was going to this conference, this Preparing a People, they host the conference, but it was for a Rod Meldrum. Does anybody know who that is? Please put it in the comments on the rewatch, or let me know right now. I don't know who this is. It just stuck out to me, and so I'm not sure even how to spell his name, but his name is Rod Meldrum. I want to know who that is. And under cross-examination, Archie says, so what was y'all selling there? Who was y'all trying to sell this to? And I don't know if Archie meant like monetarily, or, you're trying to tell people this stuff and they're going to buy it. They're going to believe it. But David Warwick confirms what we've all known. And that is they were trying, their audience, their target audience was members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's who they were targeting. And we've talked about this many times, how these groups would form, the conferences, the podcasts and everything, these energy workers and the church came out and said, hey, if these people want to do something like that for you and they want money, don't do it. The bottom line is that was the target audience, according to David Warwick's testimony. This includes those firesides, the talks. He says they were for building faith, but really, in my opinion, and my opinion's neither here nor there. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got them. The bottom line is that building faith, to me, in the lens of what went on here, was to try to get people more radicalized. At least more open-minded to all this crazy-ass stuff, okay? That's what building faith means to me when it's talking about anyone, David Warwick, Chad Daybell, Lori, any of them. He's an author and does podcasts, says Just Me. Rod Meldrum links ancient Jewish DNA to Nephites, early Mormon stuff. Google his name and Reddit. Have a nice thread about this. Okay, DJ Norman. And yes, I could have, but I wrote down these notes, and this isn't about me doing all the work. This is about all of us working together. Isn't that how it's always been? It's about interacting, helping each other. Yes, I could have. I guess I could have done that. But again, these are notes, and I'm hoping y'all can shed some light on it. Now, David Warwick says he has dreams and visions. And there was a point where Archie wanted to explore what is the difference between a nightmare and a vision. And David Warwick, pretty much told him what he thought. He said a nightmare means that you're living it. Okay, so what are we talking about here? If he says he saw all this death and all this earthquake stuff, is he talking about just feeling it? Because Melanie Gibbs talking about his heart was racing and he really feels what he's doing. Well, you can't live something that isn't real. But then he goes on to say that the difference between a nightmare and a vision is that a vision, you're being shown, and a nightmare is something you're living it. And I'm assuming he's feeling it or whatever. He talks about the vision is something in the future, and you're not really seeing yourself in that vision, and that it comes from angels that are under God. But when you go to a nightmare, now let's stop here. If this man's a good man, why was this a nightmare and not a vision? Because the nightmare, he says, is adversarial. It's darkness. It could have been an angel of the devil. Now, explain to me how someone can say they've had a nightmare and yet they also say that they can see visions. And this man is supposed to be, good in his faith, and he's supposed to be a good person. I'm not saying that people can't be attacked, but I am saying that if he really did this, okay, let's just say, for sake of argument here, if this really was a nightmare and he's actually living it, this isn't a vision of things to come down the road or anything, and he can discern between the two, then you would have thought that if this was an attack from an angel of Satan or adversarial demon or whatever, why in the hell? Why in the hell just stay there? Why not get up and leave? Why not really check things out? If there's got to be a reason why you're quote unquote living it, you're feeling it. It's just, I don't know. It to me, it just seems like these people, they have a right to believe whatever they want to believe, just as I and you and everyone else. But to have a nightmare on the same evening, overnight, I don't believe that. I don't believe it. I don't believe there was Alex taking JJ to bed. I don't believe there was a nightmare. They had to account, y'all, for those text messages and phone calls. of Melanie Gibb. Again, y'all, she's calling. Why? I mean, if Lori's right across the hallway, why text her? Why call her? Why would she text and call Chad unless she knew Chad was with Lori? Because if Chad wasn't with Lori, and she couldn't get a hold of Lori, and she gets hold of Chad, isn't he supposed to be home with his wife because his wife is still alive? Folks, make no mistake. This is what I believe Chad and Lori and Alex, Melanie Gibb and David Warwick. I'm not saying Melanie Gibb and David Warwick in the same room, but I'm telling you, this is what I believe now. And this is just theory. I believe Chad took JJ upstairs and he came back and he had scratches on his neck. And even though Melanie Gibb says it was no big deal and everything, David Warwick goes on to say, when asked, when Chad came back down and everybody said, what happened to your neck and all that, they said JJ came back down. That's never been said before, ever. In police interviews, the scratch on the neck never happened. This is all new to us. And it's got to be significant. There's got to be a reason why they've finally, I believe that part actually happened. I'm just not sure exactly when it happened. And I'm assuming this happened Sunday evening or something. And when he did that, they went off and did what they did. And that's when Melanie Gibb and David Warwick knew something was up. And it's my opinion that Chad and Lori knew that Melanie Gibb and David Warwick knew that they were going off to do this. Because remember, this is about fire and bindings and all this and that. And I think Chad and Lori did this, not because they thought Melanie Gibb and David Warwick was on board. I think this was to get them locked in. Get them locked in where they were part of this, whether they wanted to be or not. And somehow, some way, David Warwick, Melanie Gibb were able to back out of it when the shit hit the fan. But Chad and Lori locked them down on this. In other words, they did this. Melanie Gibb and David Warwick knew it happened. And they had them by the balls. That's my opinion. Just Me said David said he engaged with JJ and said he was, and you didn't say, really loves squeezing the life out of two people, said Jennifer Esslinger. You know, folks, it's very significant that after all this time, everything that's been said, that's fact, not something that we've heard in a news report. We're talking about police interviews. We're talking about, Melanie Gibb. She never once talked about Chad getting scratched on the neck and taking JJ upstairs without Lori. Folks, I just think that's what it was. And don't you find it interesting that David Warwick did all of these speaking engagements and stuff on what, y'all? Secret combinations. And that's something I've had to learn about because I didn't know anything about it. But it's where people get together and they do evil. I also want to bring this out. When David Warwick was cross-examined, Archie was starting to really, he was trying to get to it. He was trying to find out things that David Warwick knew so that the jury would know what all David Warwick really believed, right? And Rachel Smith got up and objected, and she stated some rule saying that you cannot impugn someone's religious beliefs. That's what she was stating the rule on. And you know what Judge Boyce said to Rachel Smith? Quote, the state opened the door a long time ago and on any of this, so he was not going to sustain the objection. In other words, the state had already opened the door, y'all, on impugning what was going on, and it had to happen, really, because when you have an indictment that says they endorsed and espoused religious beliefs for the purpose of murder, how else? They can't say they did their religious beliefs, but they were good beliefs, but they murdered. No, they would have to say they were religious beliefs, they were evil or bad or criminal or whatever, and they murdered. And so Rachel Smith basically asked for that objection because she wanted Archie to stop basically getting to the meat of everything David Warwick stood for. And when I think about David Warwick's testimony, and he talks about, and if you'll go back and really listen to it, he was talking about his nightmare, and he said he was horrified from what he was seeing. And what I think really that comes down to is I think he knew this wasn't about a nightmare. This wasn't about a vision. This was about David Warwick knew what happened. And I do believe Melanie Gibb and David Warwick knew that Tylee was already dead. I'm not saying they knew how that they killed them or, murdered them or how they disposed of them and concealed them. I'm just saying that why would he say that? Why would he say that on the stand, that he was horrified from what he was seeing? Because you think about this man. I don't know how old he is. I think he's in his 60s. And he wants to narrow it down to that weekend. He's having a nightmare and he's so horrified about it all. I think David Warwick, Melanie Gibb left there knowing that this had taken place. That's what I think. Another thing, and these are just small things to put in the mosaic, y'all. When you look at everything in its totality about the whole story that Melanie Gibb in her police interview talked about, David Warwick woke up and he was just, it was so, his heart was beating fast and all this. Go back and listen. They both can't corroborate each other. She says David Warwick woke up. He says she woke him up. And then he goes on to say, well, we woke each other up. Which is it? Those things actually matter. That matters. Again, this proves to me that whole story is not true because they keep changing it. 1 minute, David Warwick is waking up, and Melanie Gibb, by the way, said before, she said she was going back and forth from Tylee to JJ's room where David Warwick was sleeping and she was in Tylee's room. But then she has to come clean and say that she'd been with him all that night, sleeping in the bed with him. So nothing is adding up. Yes, you have the general nightmare. They do go on to express that she called and texted Chad and Lori wanting a blessing and all that. It does not fit together because it didn't happen. These are my theories. These are my opinions. And David Warwick said on the stand, he said that he saw the scratch on Chad Daybell's neck, but he says he didn't see the scuffle. Okay? He says he didn't see the scuffle. He said he didn't see, Chad pointed out the scratch on his neck, but he didn't see the scuffle, and that Chad had told David Warwick about it as he was showing it to him. Could this have been, look what JJ's done, and making it, and Lori had already been talking all this crap about JJ's changed. He says he loves Satan. He's talking different. He's climbing up on cabinets. It's almost like they all, it's like they all were focused in on what JJ was doing. And I'm not saying that David Warwick and Melanie Gibb was leading this, looking in on this. Chad and Lori was bringing everyone's attention to it. So Archie asked David Warwick about this podcast that him and Lori and Melanie Gibb were doing. Has anyone ever heard that podcast? Is there any proof that a podcast ever took place? I just want to know that. Is there evidence? Is there corroboration that that podcast actually happened? Okay? I don't think that is, but he says that the podcast, it took him a minute to figure out what it was the podcast was about. What was the content, says Archie. He said it was about sanctification, and his idea of sanctification was when, you get right with God and it cleans your heart through your faith and everything like that. And then you have to say, how can that be about sanctification if that is indeed the definition of what sanctification is, when it didn't add up at all with their character, their behaviors? They were all doing wrong. Every one of them. I'm not here to judge them. Hell, I've told y'all many times. What you see is what you get. If you see somebody stealing a candy bar out of the store, are you judging them by saying, well, there's a thief? You see? And we know, and I think many of us were absolutely pissed at Melanie Gibbs' testimony last week, because little bits do, but the majority of it does not line up with her police interviews. It's almost like she's rehearsed it, watered it down. She's taken out other things. And, maybe the state told her all this stuff that you yabbed on and on and on about in your interviews. We just want you to focus and narrow in on these questions. It did not line up at all with the April 30th of 2021 interview or the one that was before that. Melanie Gibbs says in that April 30th of 2021 interview that David Warwick woke up beside her that night. But yet here we are, hearing David Warwick saying, she woke me up, or we both woke each other up. And you might be thinking, KJ, that's just, that's not significant. Let me tell you something. It is significant when you're looking at a triple murder. These people can't keep their damn lies straight. It's just basically what I'm trying to point out here. Again, Melanie Gibb never said anything about Chad being scratched by JJ. And the bottom line is that the last known picture of JJ, he's wearing those red pajamas. And that's a picture taken Sunday. And the question is, when they found him, he was in those red pajamas. Doesn't sit right with me. Then of course, Melanie Gibb talks about there were 5 or 6 ladies. Y'all, this is her testimony at this trial. 5 or 6 ladies that went along with Lori and her to St. George, Utah when Lori met Chad. But she says she doesn't remember any of their names. Folks, Zulema was there. Can she not remember Zulema's name? Why can't she tell the jury their names? At least one of them. Zulema was with them. Is that hard to remember? No. Melanie Gibbs tells the jury in her testimony, there were 5 or 6 ladies with me, but I just cannot recall who they were. Give me a break, y'all. Just little lies that we know good and damn well she knows. Melanie Gibb said on the stand that Lori had already believed in multiple probations before even meeting Chad. And remember I told y'all that Lori was fertile when Chad came along. This whole concept that Chad Daybell sucked Lori in and Lori just started listening to all this stuff, she already believed in multiple probations, according to Melanie Gibb. And one might say, well, KJ, one minute you're saying Melanie Gibb's a damn liar, and the next minute you're wanting to rely on her testimony. But folks, why would Melanie Gibb even share that if it's a lie? She's sharing it. She's lacing the truth with a bunch of lies and lies by omission. That's what she's doing. Melanie Gibb confirms that Lori had already told Melanie Gibb that she'd been married to the prophet Moroni before Chad. Now explain this to me, will you? Because we've got testimony that Lori told Melanie Gibb that when her and Chad went into the temple, this time around, she wants to make sure that everyone in the public knows it wasn't in the sealing room, it was in some kind of waiting room. She's got to throw that in there because she's trying to protect the church, pure and simple. She's trying to make it look like it was less of a blasphemy from what they were doing by saying they were in a waiting room. But folks, if Lori'd been married to Moroni before, are we saying that Moroni and Jesus Christ, according to Melanie Gibb's testimony, sealed Lori and Chad together? So what, her past husband Moroni is coming to seal her to another man? Oh, I know, this might have something to do with polygamy, but damn, Moroni was a prophet. And she was married to him before, so Moroni's going to come in there and he's going to say, oh, Lori, we were married before, but I'm going to marry you to Chad in the waiting room here at the temple. Give me a break. Melanie Gibb tells the jurors that she was introduced to multiple relations by Lori and Chad, and I don't believe that. I believe Melanie Gibb was hanging out with all these crazy-ass people. Jason Mao wanted Melanie Gibb and Lori. They were like-minded, don't you know? Folks, it's so disingenuous when people who have actually studied this case and have a heart, a true heart, for the victims and their family members to see such bullshit go on. This is an exact quote from Melanie Gibb. She says, it wasn't like a sealing room. It wasn't like the church did that. She had to throw that in there. She had to throw that in there. And there are a lot of people that have a lot of opinions about that. And I'm just going to leave it at that. But again, if nobody can truly see that she's throwing the stuff in there about waiting room, it wasn't a sealing room, and hey, on top of it all, the church didn't do that, church had nothing to do with that. What is anyone supposed to believe? What is anybody supposed to believe? Melanie Gibb was covering her ass with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Melanie Gibb is comfortable talking about the inner circle. If you'll go back and listen to the testimony, you'll see I'm spot on this. She names Melanie Pulaski, Serena Sharp, Christina Atwood, Nicole Earl, Alex, Zulema, Lori, and Chad. But guess what? In that inner circle, does she even say David Warwick and her? No. She doesn't include herself. Oh, I know, she's testifying. Maybe she just assumes the jury members know that she was one of the inner circle people. But where's David Warwick in all this? Is people going to say, well, KJ, he didn't really get into the situation with them till August of 2019. Folks, this man is a nut job, I'm sorry, it's my opinion, who did talks about secret combinations and all of this stuff. He says he didn't give himself a name as someone who was, who could see revelations, a visionary. But other people have said that about him. There were a lot of things that he's done, and in other countries. And this was somebody Lori and Chad wanted. They wanted David Warwick in this. And they wanted to keep Melanie Gibb too. Melanie Gibb says that Lori and Chad envisioned that they would be together after their spouses passed away. And the one thing when I stopped and I thought about that, and I thought, yeah, Chad and Lori were telling everybody, we're going to eventually be together because our spouses are going to pass away. You know it, y'all. You know it. Chad and Lori had to have known It's either together or even in the back of their own minds, they're going to die and we're going to get this money. We're going to get life insurance. Tammy has a life insurance policy. Charles Vallow. So this is going to be a bonus. This is what we've been waiting on. Not only we want these people out of the picture without having a divorce and lose out on the opportunity to get some life insurance money, but this is like we're just waiting on the lottery to hit. That's really what it was. And they started talking about car wrecks, that Charles Vallow and JJ was going to get in a car wreck, and when it didn't happen, Lori was like, was not happy about that at all. And then Tammy was supposed to have been in a car wreck and all this. It's almost like they built themselves up through talk of their spouses dying to a point where they put it in their own hands. I guess at this point, being lowercase g's, they couldn't wait on divinity. They couldn't wait on these Charles's and Tammy's appointed time. They wanted to create an appointed time. And of course, this was said out loud, and I think we all knew this, but when it was said out loud, a lot of people wanted to blame Chad for the reason of this, but Melanie Gibb testified that Charles was the first person Lori ever called dark. And perhaps Chad, introduced those dark and light scales to her. She already knew about multiple probations. So Chad adding this messed up teaching, Charles was the first, and it was so convenient, wasn't it? Anyone that got Lori ended up just not wanting to be around, or they didn't take her serious, or she was going to get something out of it. In fact, the ones that were dark are the ones that she wanted to get money from. Charles, Brandon, JJ Tiley. Well, she could not take the money from JJ and Tiley and use it for her own use if that money had to go toward the care of those children. You see, it is not cheap to have children. A 16-year-old and a 7-year-old little boy that needs this extra help. All the money was going toward their care. She wanted that money without having to spend it on the kids. So she took them out along with Chad and the rest of them. This was interesting. Melanie Gibbs says there was another lady there, but I don't remember her name, talking about these castings. You think that Melanie Gibb can't remember Julie Clement? Is that a hard person's name to remember? She can't remember there are 5 or 6 women in a car with her. Then she can't remember there was another woman there, but I don't remember her name. It was Julie Clement. And I don't believe this, but they say that Melanie Gibbs says Chad, that she was only present at one casting with Chad, and that was over Brandon Boudreaux. I guarantee you, they were talking about Tylee, they were talking about Brandon, they were talking about JJ, they were talking about Tammy. Melanie Gibb and David Warwick, Zulema, they didn't want people to see that this was a consistent pattern with them. These people deal with patterns, folks. And to top it all off, Melanie Gibb is asked, did you do any castings on anyone else? And Melanie Gibb says, quote, I don't recall. And we know that was her, every time, that was her go-to. She doesn't recall. She's very specific when it looks good on her about someone else doing it. She just had her testimony of Jesus Christ. Everybody else was doing all this crazy stuff. She was in 10 plus castings, and that wasn't even brought out in terms of the numeric number of how many times she had done this. I'll say this much. On direct, Lindsay Blake did say you've been to several of these. They do not go to, and you know, I think it was important for a jury member to know that Melanie Gibb had been to 10 plus of them. I mean, that's a lot of castings. And if you think about it, how many castings was done on Charles, and then you subtract that number, and then there were some after that, and all of it was about Brandon? Maybe Tammy? Give me a break, y'all. And by the way, Melanie Gibb says Tammy was dark right before her death. Right before her death, we know that Tammy had a spirit named Viola in her. Brandon was one of Hitler's crew. Charles was all these different demons' names. You had, names for all of them. Even Tylee, they even said her name was Hillary. But do you notice that they never give JJ a name? They never give him a name of what demon he is. And if people want to say, well, JJ was light. Well, Charles Vallow was light at one time. And if Charles Vallow was light at one time, how the hell does 3 demons at 3 separate times get in someone who's so light? And why, this whole thing about, well, they can go from light to dark, dark to light. What I'm trying to let y'all understand is, and y'all already know this, it was so much bullshit. It was just so ridiculous. And this is very significant because we've been told by looking at Lori's police interview, Tylee's police interview, and Alex's police interview in the murder of Charles Vallow. They said Charles came in, he accidentally left his phone in the house. When he went back to get in the car with JJ, he realized he'd left the phone. Remember, Lori says he does that all the time. Melanie Gibbs on the stand just last week saying that Lori said that the spirit told her to pick up and take Charles's phone out of the car when Lori was out there putting JJ in the car for Charles to take JJ to school. Which is it? I thought Charles left his phone in the house, came back in. I mean, we know what happened. He was ambushed. And then, of course, Melanie Gibb lets us all know something we really kind of already knew anyway. To Chad and Lori, when they spent all this adulterous time together, they were in lots of hotels and they were visiting temples. Isn't that sweet? Hotels, temples, hotels. And they were intimate at those hotels. And of course, we know that Lori told Melanie Gibb that it was okay because they had been married in a different life and that God thought there was nothing wrong with this. If that's the case, why is Chad Daybell telling David Warwick, hey, don't tell anyone about Lori and I's relationship? Why couldn't Lori? And another thing, Melanie Gibb never says on the stand at all. Go back and listen to it. Remember that whole damn bullshit about Chad and Lori walking around the BYU track? She never says a word about that. She says that they went in, they walked around, she didn't say anything about holding hands. She went in down to a room at BYU and looked at pictures. And then when they got in the parking lot, Chad was affectionate to Lori then. There was never any testimony that Lori and Chad were holding hands walking around BYU track. And we've been told this time and time again. Don't you think that would have been just as significant as Chad being sweet and intimate in terms of kissy lovey-dovey with Lori as they were out in the parking lot at BYU? Why not say they were holding hands walking around the track if that's in fact what happened? These people are liars. They're absolute liars. Melanie Gibbs said that Lori told her that she was going to get Kay to watch JJ from now on. Well, you can't have it both ways. Melanie Gibb had been told all this time that Kay Woodcock was dark. Kay Woodcock was angry grandma, and Kay was so bad, and Kay took the money, and all this and that, and then Lori's going to present with Melanie Gibb, hey, I'm going to send my demon-possessed son to this dark Kay Woodcock, and I'm going to tell him I have breast cancer. Does that make sense at all? Does it? What I'm trying to say is when if Lori was actually telling Melanie Gibb, I'm going to send JJ with Kay Woodcock. Melanie Gibb said the day she showed up, that Thursday before the weekend, and she stayed all the way till that Monday, she said Lori was right off the bat saying, look at JJ. I was told yesterday that JJ has an evil spirit in him. And and she wants Melanie Gibb to believe that after telling her this and also telling her about Kay Woodcock being dark, that this is her plan. And Melanie Gibb and David Warwick want everyone to believe that this is their way of getting their ass out of trouble because Lori said Kay had JJ. She came to the airport, dropped JJ off at the airport with Kay, and then to top it all off, y'all, when Melanie Gibb says she didn't know JJ wasn't with Kay, why didn't she say to her, why did you tell me that you took him to the airport? Yes, she did say on that secret recording, why did you tell them that he was with me? And then she goes on to say all this about Kay, but the bottom line is Lori and Chad were not going to say to Melanie Gibb, hey, you know about this, because that would have implicated themselves. And Lori and Chad knew when Melanie Gibb made that secret recording, they knew not to incriminate themselves. And they knew that I think they were all speaking in code, really, to be honest with you. They were all like, we're in big trouble here. And they were able to speak in that code with one another. That's what I believe. And Melanie Gibb also on the stand when she was examined and cross-examined, when asked about, JJ's behavior and him being autistic. Maybe this was privacy, but, she never had a problem before saying that her child was autistic. She never says a word about that. She never says her child is autistic. David Warwick said his child had Down syndrome and was autistic, but Melanie Gibb, go back and listen to it. She never says that she has an autistic child. And finally, through all of this, through this daycare worker, through the principal, through Melanie Gibb and David Warwick, I've seen through the defense, even though they're not very good, they're not doing as well as I wanted more answers, but what they're trying to show, if you'll go back and listen, you'll see it, if you don't already, that JJ was in these routines. Remember when Thomas kept asking Melanie Gibb, well, did you ever go and drop JJ off at school with Lori? Did you know that JJ had to have chicken fries? Did you ever know that JJ had these routines? The reason why he kept harping on that is because he wanted to show the jurors, and they're going to say it in their closing statement, up till everything happened, even with Melanie Gibb and David Warwick there's a pattern of Lori keeping JJ in his routines because Lori didn't know that JJ was going to be murdered, which is a crock of shit. But that's what they're going to say. That's why he's homing in on routines. That's why they keep talking about, hey, Care.com girl, didn't Lori say she was going to use you again? Hey, principal, did Lori say she was only going to have JJ enrolled for 3 weeks? And the principal said, no, we just thought he was going to be there. That's what they're going to do. That's how it's going to do. Treva Levesque, go back. And a great point. I think she did mention it when she was on the stand at Chad's preliminary hearing. And perhaps you're right. But the bottom line is we hear her testimony in a triple murder trial this week. And it's so watered down. And it's so not speaking everything properly and right at all. And just think of these jurors out here. These jurors, I don't know if any of them's ever heard of the narrative of the story. I'm assuming most of them haven't heard of this. And they're hearing this, and you know they've got to have questions. They can't just take it on face value, and they've got to decide, are these people credible or not? The good news is this. If the jury says Melanie Gibb, Zulema, David Warwick, they're not credible because things are not adding up, they can disregard their testimony entirely, or they can believe bits and pieces of it, that they see something else that lines up with what they've testified to. So we got Melanie Pulaski coming up. You know Ian's going to be on there. We don't know what's going to happen with that. Jennifer Eschlinger says, I wish Lindsay Blake would have asked Larry or Kay or Kresha or KJ any questions you want me to ask, blank person's name, while they're on the stand. Wouldn't that be great? Maybe I'll put something on the community wall, and I'll say, hey, Rays, what would you want if you was a juror and they would allow questions to these witnesses? What would you want to ask? Because, folks, the bottom line is we didn't get the answers that a lot of us were hoping to get. We did get some new stuff. We did get some of it, but not a lot of it. This whole situation with Chad taking JJ upstairs and a scratch on his neck and all of this, that is so troubling to me. And it's so troubling how Melanie Gibb, we knew before this trial even happened that something stunk to high heaven with Melanie Gibb and David Warwick's testimony about that weekend. It doesn't sound credible at all. Why would David Warwick just out of nowhere get up the next morning after having this terrible experience the night before? Do they even let anyone know? Well, we couldn't get a hold of Lori. We couldn't get a hold of Chad late in the night. But when we got up the next morning, I asked Lori, why didn't you answer your phone? Why didn't you answer the text? You see what I'm saying? None of it makes sense at all. Oh, Kathy says, took the hubster out to dinner. Ooh. You know, Mr. Tom is my Valentine, Kathy, Mama Bear. Oh, for those that don't know, Kathy Mama Bear is like the big time person who helps Kresha K. Easton of Difficult Research. She's also helped other channels, and she's such a loving, giving, savvy, incredible woman. That's true, MK. The jurors don't have the benefit of listening to the conflicting earlier testimonies. And I'm just going to be upfront with y'all. I really, I told y'all when I opened this channel, the adjudication of this case, I wanted to see justice done. It can't just be about a conviction. It has to, you have to see things played out through direct and cross-examination. And the bottom line is it's so absolutely despicable that these cult members would get on the stand. There are too many people that know the deal, and yet they're trying to pass this off to jurors that perhaps do not have the information that we have. Wendy Bastings, I'm assuming Kresha's doing good. As good as she can. She's going to this trial. This has got to be very traumatic for her, for Kay and Larry, but they're strong. They're a strong family. I hope they're doing good. Yeah, Just Me says, I don't understand why they're soft-soaping their lies. We know the facts. It's not our theories, not our hypothesis. And when I say facts, we're looking at police interviews and police reports. And yes, Melanie Gibb could have been in those police interviews lying through her teeth, which we knew she was anyway. But you would think, by now, this damn woman would say, I've got 2 police interviews out here. I better get on top of my lies. It's not credible to say you're in a car with 5 to 6 other women and not even bring up Zulema. Why not do that? Why not? I mean, that would be more credible than saying, well, I went. This was a pivotal moment. I remember Lori flirting with Chad. I remember every little detail of that. But I don't remember who was with us? Give me a break. Elaine McKenzie says, so is the majority thinking Lori's insane or knew what she was doing? There's this fine line where, first and foremost, Lori is not having a mental health defense, okay? She's not having a mental health defense. But remember, Ray's on here. Remember I told you, why should they have a mental health defense? Where they can bring in someone to say, Lori's got these problems, right? These mental health issues. They stated it quite clearly. That's not where they were going to go. Why should they? Because when they hear these nut jobs, when they hear Lori acting crazy, lying, saying this crazy stuff and all of that, you know, these jurors have to, on a human level, they have to say, this woman has lost her mind. Folks, there are things I believe. I'm a Christian. I'm a sinner saved by grace. I believe in the Holy Bible. There are people out here today that have every right to come on here and say, hey, KJ, I don't believe anything you say. That's a crock or whatever. But folks, what I believe doesn't lead to murder. What I believe has not done anything but try to show people love in my life, to give of myself the best that I can, to let people know how imperfect and how much of a freaking mess up I can be. I am far, far from where I need to be, and I'll never get there in this life. That's why Jesus had to die on the cross for me, because I can't be perfect. I can't. Only Jesus was perfect. There's not a single person on this planet that can say they're perfect. I mean, it's just the way it is. Yes, Julie Coe, I know there are. There'll be thousands of unanswered questions. And this goes back again to what we all talked about. Even if Lori came out and Chad came out and they decided they were just going to plead guilty and they were going to, just tell everyone what they did, down to every detail. Could anyone really rely on that? Could anybody really rely on that? I believe it, Maria P. If anyone thinks that Chad and Lori, yes, they did. They come up with a lot of stuff and everything. The bottom line is there are people that were following right along with that. That's why the indictment says known and unknown. Because there are people out here that still believe this. And make no mistake, Chad the leader and Lori the leader, someone else is going to step into that position. And it's all going to be about, the dark Cain, Satan, he's got them in a jail cell. They'll say something like, well, look, there were so many good people in Holy Scripture that were thrown in prison. Chad and Lori are in prison. Think about this Warren Jeffries. He's still rolling it from prison to a lot of these people. The bottom line is that there's always a way that people will hold on to these false teachings and false beliefs. And I say false teaching and false beliefs as related to mine. Some of these people really believe this shit, but they're not wanting to go out here and murder people. Lori and Chad did not have a problem spewing all this about light and dark, multiple probations, the king and queen of the 144,000, the church of the firstborn. I mean, their way of getting around, I guess, shitting all over, the Church of Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints prophet there, who's supposed to be in charge of everything, was to say, no, this isn't that church. This is coming out, and this is the Church of the Firstborn. This is scriptural. Well, I'm going to tell you what, y'all. I believe in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And there's a lot of stuff in there that teaches me about Jesus Christ. But that doesn't give me permission to say, okay, I'm going to say that this person, like, what was it? David Warwick said, was it James the Beloved gave Chad this confirmation that he was this. Why couldn't God Almighty Jesus Christ? Oh, wait a minute. Chad said he was the Holy Spirit. Blasphemy. The unforgivable sin. That's what he had. That's what it is. And I'll tell you something else. This whole concept about fire, it's in everything. It's not only in the murder of Tylee and the concealment of her. Melanie Gibbs, Feel the Fire. You got David Warwick talking about fire. You're talking about Zulema creating fire. It's all about fire, y'all. And the only thing I see in Holy Scripture is hell. It's got a fire. We're talking about some characters in Holy Scripture talk about how they walked through the furnace and they came out through their faith. They weren't murdered. They weren't dead. It's the way it is. I believe that solo dub. Chud stole from Dearly Rowe, but she's not as stupid to kill for the grift. All of them hit wrong on the 10. That's right, Denise. And loin fire. Can you imagine that? So I'm going to look at these comments. Is there anything in here that you learned? And I will put a post on Community Wall. Maybe I have the answer. Maybe I don't. Maybe we can just chew on it. T.S. Jackson 72 said, Lori thought Chad was James the Less. Chad liked James the Beloved or James the Just Better. They couldn't keep it straight, could they? And again, this goes back to they didn't have a problem labeling everyone. How would they know the name of these demons? Nick Schneider, Garrick, Hiplost, Hillary, Viola, Brandon's one of the Hitler crew, but they don't even stop to give a name to JJ. But maybe they did. And maybe Melanie Gibb and David Warwick doesn't want anyone to know that they knew that. Just as they knew that Lori and Chad had gotten rid of Tylee. These are all my opinions. Allegedly. This trial is going on, and I don't want to hear anything from anyone saying that I'm slandering them. Well, I'll tell you something. I'll go up against any of these cult members any day of the week. I will do a live feed of it. I will sit down with each one of them, and I will have a little talk with them. Okay, Jay, I'll have a little talk with them. I know all the Rays on here would appreciate that. Maria P. says, Lori's cousin came out today in an interview saying Lori was vicious since way back when, that Lori was like her father, Barry. Yeah, and Lori said Barry was bad. So I guess she had to get away from that. Somebody said the babysitter was asked if she saw a teenage girl at the home, and she said no, but that Lori told her she had a teenage daughter that didn't like to take care of JJ for free. And that's a good thing that reminds me, we're all very well of these damn lies of Lori. I mean, we're talking a pathological liar. But there was somebody with Lori, said her friend. It was never clear. Some said it was Melanie Gibb with Lori. Others said it was Chad. And I still haven't gotten an answer to that yet. Yeah, they sure were, Beach Lady. They were making it up as they went along. They sure did. John Shepard, Lori, I don't know that she did any professional modeling. I know she was a cheerleader that went into pageants when she was married to Joe Ryan. She did the Mrs., not the Miss, but the Mrs. Texas pageant. She also went on Wheel of Fortune. But she was absolutely gorgeous. She don't look that way now, excuse me, y'all. I just think it is amazing how there is scripture in the New Testament that specifically says to not add anything to the Bible, even if it was an angel who revealed it to you. Kristen09, that is my belief. You shouldn't. It says do not add or take anything away. And, but hey, that's just my belief. Everyone has different beliefs. Tina, you getting your floor done there? They made up all their stuff, but they forgot to take notes and can't keep it straight, says Tina Reddington. You getting some flooring in there, Tina? Yeah, they couldn't keep it straight. That's why we're seeing what we are with Melanie Gibb and David Warwick. It's hard to keep lies straight. When you're telling the truth, you don't have a lot to remember. And even then, they've had all this time to get their lies down. But it goes back to this thing. Yes, you could say, oh, I've got, 2 years to get my shit together on what I'm going to say at this trial. But it's just like Jodi Arias. She had an answer for everything. But it doesn't add up on so many levels. And, I don't know if the jurors are really going to get down to the nitty gritty of that in their own mind through deliberations, whether they have this, while their testimony, the jurors taking mental notes or physical notes about it. I just put a new kitchen floor in during the trial, says Kathy Binion. Obviously, Lori has always been used to getting what she wants, and maybe she used her looks for her advantage. I believe that, John Shepard. I really do. She wanted what she wanted, and she was used to getting it. And this was a challenge to Lori. This was something she'd made up her mind about before even meeting Chad Daybell. That is the reason why she went to St. George, Utah. That was her plan. She had designs on Chad Daybell, pure and simple. Hey, Language of Horses. Hey, Paula. Hey, Kathleen Curtis. We've got, Monday's rolling around. We've got more testimony. A lot of the things that we heard at the end of the week, we already knew about the body cam. We knew about all of that. But did y'all see that on the community wall? If you haven't seen it, I posted it. Nate Eaton did an interview with this guy who was supposed to clean up Lori's apartment 175. And they found that box that JJ had been cutting out holes to make him a little house in. And it had his name on it. It said JJ. And this fella, you got to watch this video. He said before he knew that's what the apartment was, he said he said when he walked in, it felt like it was thick in there. Folks, this whole thing that Lori talks about, the kids were murdered in apartment 107, Alex's apartment. Remember, y'all. Remember, there was nothing in that apartment. And for all we know, this all happened at Lori's. You think about that. September 22nd of the year before, Lori said a Moroni appeared to her. So that's significant. Then you have David Warwick, Melanie Gibb coming that weekend of the conference. Chad's in and out. It's almost like Chad took JJ upstairs and came back down. I don't know what he could have done at that time, but it was like he was proving to them what Lori was speaking to them. And that is that JJ was not JJ. And Melanie Gibbs says that Lori told her that she had been told this the day before Melanie Gibb got there. So Lori could have lied and said that Chad told her this, but I don't believe it. I believe that scratch on the neck was confirmation to them that JJ was what Lori and Chad wanted that to be, which was it was a lie. JJ was around this evil, diabolical, sling blade, nasty ass man. His sister was gone. If he was acting out, he was used to routines, right? His sister was there for him. And it just seems to me that David Warwick brings out that it seemed like Alex Cox had a good relationship with JJ and could calm him down and all this stuff. Wouldn't you believe that it took that trust, if in fact that was true of JJ, to know that it was Alex, Chad, and Lori that did this? And I believe Melanie Gibb and David Warwick knew it happened. Could I go so far as to say they were all in one room, binding him up, saying a bunch of crazy stuff? It could have been. But I honestly, when you think about David Warwick saying it was horrific, it was terrible, it's like the whole weekend was terrible. Chad and Lori were trying to lock David Warwick and Melanie Gibb in. They wanted something over David Warwick and Melanie Gibb's head so that they could keep them in the cult. You think so, T.S. Jackson 72? I think Chad may have put those scratches there himself. I believe JJ was brought upstairs by Chad, and JJ knew that his mama was downstairs, and I think he freaked out, and I wouldn't have blamed him, whether he was autistic or not. That's what I think. I mean, y'all, you know this is all about theory and hypothesis, and it breaks my heart to bring it up, but folks, why would that even been brought into the narrative in David Warwick, Melanie Gibbs' testimony when it's never showed its head any time before? I'll tell you why. Number one, I believe it was true, and number two, they figured out they could say this in a way that would make Chad look more guilty and them less culpable. Why? Why couldn't Melanie Gibb and David Warwick see that this was a very unhealthy situation and got the hell out of there? They went right along with it, y'all. The only time Melanie Gibb and David Warwick backtracked was when the police got involved. If the police would have never got involved, Melanie Gibb and David Warwick being the one who knows all about secret combinations, y'all, would have just kept on, keeping on. That's what would have happened. These are just my views. Emily Hamm is the reason why they had the money to rent at least two of the apartments. Now, remember, Melanie Pulaski rented next door to Lori. She had some money from Brandon. Lori left. She'd taken, $35,000 out of Charles Vallow's account. It was money that was set aside to pay his employees, along with airline miles and all that. Lori wasn't completely broke when she went to Idaho. She just knew that time was running out for her. She knew that Kay Woodcock was not going to let it go. She knew, Kay and Larry and the rest of their family members, that interview with Charles Vallow's brother, the one that broke my heart, where he talked about how when him and Charles were little, they used to walk to the baseball field together and stuff. It tore me up. I've got boys. You know, I've raised 3 boys, and thinking of that it tears me up. And there was no way that they were going to accept that Charles Vallow was killed in self-defense. They knew the deal. And Lori knew they knew the deal. That's right, Lori. That's Lori Staltari. The prosecutor said it right from the beginning. This case is about sex, money, and power. Illegally Blonde says JJ had bruising on both arms. I believe he scratched Chad. Great point, Illegally Blonde. Remember, that was in that report, y'all, that Hermosillo talked about. Remember, that was something new we found out. We didn't know that JJ had bruising on his arms. And they had to grab him. I don't want to talk about this, but I have to put it all together. They grabbed him, and JJ, most definitely, y'all, he fought for his life. And make no mistake, y'all, JJ, Tylee, Tammy, and Charles, they're in a better place. But they are. They're screaming out through the voice of Cresha K. Easton of Difficult Research and their extended family members, Kay and Larry and all. They want justice. and justice is going to happen. It's just a damn shame that Melanie Gibb, David Warwick, and Zulema, and maybe even, look at what we've heard so far, y'all. Melanie Pulaski, you think it's going to be any different? Is the state going to put kid gloves on her? Or are they going to blow her out of the water playing those FBI tapes that Ian, her husband there, had made for the FBI? These police officers testified when they went over there the day of the welfare check, said they drove up and Chad and Alex was unloading stuff out of into the garage. Why? Why haven't they showed the body cam on that? There are just things that I think that should be shown. The full diabolical nature of this case. Good night, Betsy's Barn. They sure do, Illegally Blonde. They all deserve it. But make no mistake, y'all. I believe what comes around goes around. Some call it karma. I myself just say what comes around goes around. There's a reason Melanie Gibb had to walk into the court with that big floppy hat and that extra shirt. Everybody knows who she is. And I feel sorry for anyone living next door to her in Chandler. And then you got David Warwick over here in Utah. Isn't that a lovely couple? These two can't live together because they can't live what they both know. They both know it. And being away from each other, it's easier for them not to be reminded that they were absolutely knowledgeable enough to know that this shit happened. Yes, John Shepard, that's true. Gannon staunch. Jack Gustafson said they make me sick. Oh, they make me sick. The Rays on here know how many times that I've vented out saying I want to beat the living hell out of them and all of this other stuff. I'm the most loving person in the world. It's not the person, y'all. It's what they do that I want to beat the hell out of. Thick as thieves, says McJet. Well, I doubt we'll ever see another public hanging again. But this firing squad does sound good for Chad. Unfortunately, the Rays on here know that there's a good possibility that because Lori got away with not getting the death penalty on the table, that perhaps Chad could have John Pryor talk about when he had his accident. He fell in the ocean and hit his head or something. He's got something wrong with his brain, and they'll take the death penalty off the table for him. Y'all know how it goes. But you know what? I've come to accept it. I've accepted this, that them spending life in prison, that is the death penalty, really, because when you take someone's freedom away, I don't give a damn what they get to do in prison. Watch TV, make license plates. I don't give a shit. They'll never, ever, ever be out here in society again. And they'll have to deal with other people in prison. Oh, yeah, you're right about that, Lori. Chad will have to serve Bubba in prison. Make no mistake. Y'all, this isn't me. This stuff really happens in prison for both of them. There's the dominants and there's the submissives. And I guarantee you, Chad and Lori both will be submissives. They won't be in there preaching that crap to all them people like some want to believe they're going to get in there and try to convert people to their bullshit. They're going to be in there and they're going to be real quiet. That's what they're going to do, and hope that somebody doesn't visit them late at night, if you know what I mean. Ernest says, I think Archie and Thomas feel like they won by getting the death penalty taken off the table. For any defense attorney, that is a win. But again, folks, if you look at the defense and where they're going right now, make no mistake, y'all. They're attacking these witnesses in their credibility to a degree by letting the jury know how crazy their beliefs are. Maybe the jurors are thinking while they're hearing it, they're like, well, I remember when we were selected that we're not supposed to You know, we're not supposed to think that you know, this is crazy, that makes them guilty. But I can tell you this right now. The juror members, they're going to have to see past this attempt by the defense to make it look like Lori was in these routines with JJ, and so this wasn't premeditation, this wasn't conspiracy, and it makes sense because y'all got to know not John Pryor, but Archibald and Thomas, and I guess even John Pryor if you think about it, because he's there watching. They've got to make it look like their client did not conspire to do anything. And it's a major uphill battle. And y'all know, if you haven't been convinced, Lori is taking the stand, y'all. There is no other way. Chad's kids are going to gush about how great of a dad he is, I bet, says Laney the Wolf. I mean, you know it. You got enough sense to know it. And we don't know who the witnesses will be for the defense other than I feel like Lori's going to take the stand. But, you know, you got Summer Shiflett. Oh, and by the way, Melanie gives testimony. When Archie asked who knew that Lori was on this special mission to be the goddess and everything, she said Lori told Summer Shiflett, which backs up that text message that Summer sent to Lori saying, I believe in your mission. I'm here for you no matter what. Remember that? Summer's got a lot of explaining to do, but I doubt the defense are as smart as all of us on here, and we know what should be asked. Yeah, Norma, brainwashing, thought reform. They were listening to all this stuff, going to these conferences. They wanted more than what the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had for them. They built upon it. Some people think it's much deeper than that, but I am, in my view and in my perspective, a person of personal responsibility. And that pertains to don't break the laws. Don't murder people. Don't commit financial crimes. Don't lie to law enforcement. But you know what? Melanie Gibb got away with it. Melanie Gibb got away with breaking the law by lying to law enforcement. And if you'll think about it and go back to this last week's testimony, she doesn't really come out and say, like she did at Chad's preliminary, where John Pryor said, so that wasn't the truth. And she said, no, it was not the truth. So you lied to the police. And Melanie Gibb said, yes. Well, did you hear Archie ask her the same question? No. And I don't understand it. Prison is going to get real fast. Lori's going to take the stand and drop a bombshell. I believe it, NF Mom, but hey, we have to take that with a grain of salt. This woman is a pathological liar. She's going to put this off on Chad and Alex. That's what we've all talked about. First, it was when we first got this case and started researching it, all of us was like, okay, who's going to be the first to throw the other under the bus? Well, you've got Chad Daybell's daughter, Emma, going on national TV, not only confirming what the state just confirmed in their opening statement here at trial, that Tammy died of asphyxiation, but Emma also says that it was Lori and Alex. And folks, I believe Chad committed first-degree murder on Tammy. I do. But I also believe that he might have gotten a little help from Alex. Alex was just up the road at that church. And I've been there. My husband and I traveled to Idaho and went that same exact route from Lori's apartments to Chad Daybell's apartments. Y'all were with me. We did it together. And Alex could have very well parked at that church, went down there and helped the situation. Chad could have gotten Alex through the door or a window in the middle of the night. Or Chad could have done it himself. We know that the state is saying that Chad Daybell moved Tammy Daybell's body. And the question is she is charged with conspiracy to commit murder on JJ and Tylee and first degree murder of JJ and Tylee, right? But she's not charged with first degree murder of Tammy Daybell, but Chad is. So one has to wonder, is it the state's theory of the case that Lori, Alex, and Chad did this to JJ? And that Lori, Alex, and Chad did this to Tylee? This has to come together to where we at least know what the state thinks that the evidence shows. I don't think Lori was there when Tylee was murdered. I think she was there when JJ was. I think it was Lori and Chad and Alex doing this. The blue blanket, y'all. The blue blanket. Chad Daybell would have never put a blue blanket on JJ, and neither would Alex. This was Lori. Lori did this. She had to show Chad and Alex, because Chad and Alex murdered Tylee, dismembered her body, burned her up, put her in the pet cemetery. Lori had to show her actions about all of this. She, for goodness sake, January 2019, almost a year before, from January 19th to September 22nd or 23rd, all the way back in January, Lori was so disappointed that Charles Vallow and JJ hadn't died in an accident. Lori said for herself that she told Charles wouldn't have lied about this, that she didn't want JJ anymore. She told others that she couldn't fulfill her mission with JJ around. But she just had to have that money, don't y'all know? Don't y'all know that? I don't agree giving the order is as guilty as being there, says Cecilia Jackson. Well, this goes back to Cecilia of Idaho law. Just as Lindsay Blake stated it, you don't have to actually do hands-on to commit first-degree murder. And it's akin a lot to, because conspiracy to commit murder, it's like this. Conspiracy to commit some crime, okay? Say conspiracy to commit a bank robbery, and you're just the one who's driving the car. You didn't go in the bank or hold anyone up. You were out there waiting. So you conspired to do that. But the people that went in and say they shot someone or took the money, you're just as guilty, and you received the penalty of bank robbery just as you would if you went in and stole the money, because you were out there conspiring. You did one act. Only one of the people have to do one act in furtherance of that conspiracy. And they've got every freaking angle you could. I mean, if one is shot down, there's about 10 more on these overt acts that Chad, Lori, and Alex did. And the big mama tamale of it all is that Lori Daybell was the mother of those children. And she can't get beyond that. We've all talked about it. The Rays on here and I have tried to play the devil's advocate and think of, well, any other possible explanation. But when her and her attorney came out with that legal document about her alibi and said she knew nothing about it before, she didn't know nothing about it afterwards, and she wasn't the principal offender, that tells you everything you need to know. Well, I understand that, Cecilia, but that's Idaho law. And I mean, it is what it is. I mean, there are a lot of laws in life that a lot of us disagree with, but that's just how it goes. Jean Fatou says, wonder what the jury thought when Lori giggled at Kobe on that phone call. I can tell you that when I heard it, it made the hair on the back of my neck stand straight up. And I know, and we've all studied old Lori Hussey Daybell. And these jurors had to hear that and see how absolutely awful that sounded. She absolutely patronized Kobe, did not even acknowledge his devastation, his feelings. CC Johnson and we'll see. No, Lainey Wolf says crazy. MM says creepy. Uh, Lainey the Wolf again, heartless, cruel. Jean Fatu says I cringed. Um, yeah, Carrie Ann, it was the most evil laugh. That's we all have our own beliefs. I just believe it, y'all. I'm sorry, I do. I believe she's demon possessed. And I believe that demon's going to stay in there and be happy to be in that body for the rest of her days. Yes, she was, John Shepherd. She was mocking her own son. Hello, Carolyn A. Carolyn A says that giggle was pure demon. Yes, it did, CC Johnson 67. Valerie Moore says possessed. Susan Purdy says, I agree. Grammy B says, I'm right there with you. Folks, it's been a week. Every day I've tried my very best. I'm doing this, trying to do the blow by blow. Y'all know I had no idea I was going to do that. After all of everything we've been through, the Rays on here, I had to do it because it was one thing when we got the cameras taken out. It was very disappointing. And then, the next thing you know, it's like, well, how are we going to know about it? We thought that, we were going to get the audio, but we thought it was going to be like during the time that it was going on. So, I in some ways, we get a double shot because we do get Nate Eaton touching on testimony during the day, and in the evening, we get the actual audio. So that should open our minds up to fill in those mosaics to get justice through understanding. Thank you so much, CC Johnson 67, and thank all of the Rays on here for being patient as we have had an uptick in activity. And for those that are new on here, I think you should probably know this because the Rays do. The bottom line is when this case is adjudicated and there's a conviction, this channel will cease to exist. So I will be seeing the Rays on Cresha K. Easton at Difficult Research, chatting with them on her live stream. Excuse me, y'all. I've been fighting allergies. That's what we're never going to ever, be apart. I've made lifelong friends, but it's a promise that was made and a promise that's going to be kept. It's important. And, I know deep in my heart why. So, well, Eminem, that's a good point because it will be Judge Boyce who will sentence her. It all depends on if she's guilty on all charges. I cannot see him doing anything but life in prison. And I believe it'll be guilty on all charges. I believe that the financial crimes have already, you can check those off. Conspiracy to commit murder, first-degree murder. There are still people on live streams with Nate and other areas, other news organizations. I've been keeping an eye on the consensus on comments where people says, okay, so they believed all this crazy stuff, but where does it show that she did this or that? Again, y'all, not all triple murder cases or even a murder case has the smoking gun. You have the evidence, and then the jury has to say, is this enough evidence that we feel like this can convict her? Yes, she has other charges with Charles. Mariah Stostola has been a Ray on here. Absolutely, the Rays on here, they know who they are. They helped me through all of this. They kept me strong, and they supported Cresha K. Easton of Difficult Research. And I hope that for those of you that do not know, that Cresha K. Easton, she has a channel called Difficult Research. She is the aunt of J.J. Ballo, and she is the daughter of Kay and Larry Woodcock. And if you could go and give her your support, that would mean the world to me. That's what I'm doing here. I'm here to seek justice through understanding with all the rays on here. But most importantly, I want to honor the victims and the victims' family members. Yes, Jean Fatou, that's what we all want. Guilty on all charges. Good one, Jennifer. That's a good suggestion. I'll keep that in mind. Laney the Wolf says, amen. Alanya, it's, hey, would somebody put in, one of the rays on here, put in the comments, Cresha K. Easton, it's called Difficult Research. DIFFICULT research. Okay? Please put it in the comments, Ray, so that, because someone's in here asking. Alana is asking about that channel. Cresha's got an excellent catalog. And what she has to say is a hell of a lot more important than what anyone on this channel or has to say. Thank you so much, Mariah Stostola. It's in the comments, Alana. Thank y'all so much for doing that. Thank you, Mohawk Mom, Norma Guerra, Jay Blake. And so for all of y'all that's been going along with OKJ, y'all know near the end of the day, we're looking at like, what, 3.5 hours in the morning for testimony. Then they'll have a lunch. And then the afternoon, by the afternoon rolls around, y'all might have figured it out right now. If you've been following along with me, I'm getting very, very silly and cynical. It's hard to sit and do that all day. It's one thing, the Rays know I don't like doing live streams, but it's the only way that I can really interact with everyone. Vic's text makes a very good point. It's personal for Cresha. She is the voice of Charles Vallow, her uncle, JJ, and Tylee and Tammy. And even Joe Ryan. The bottom line is that she's definitely, she's a strong woman. She has a lot of important things to say. Thank you, Treva. It's not a sacrifice as long as y'all are there to help me through it. Because when I see the rays on there, it makes me want to stay strong and move forward in it. I've been meeting new people on that live stream, and I appreciate their presence on there. I've made it very clear. KJ and the Ray is a channel that's not for everyone, but everyone is welcome. Thank you, Kristen09. Language of Horses. Yeah, I know, Language of Horses. Reality. Trying to remind me to please take breaks and do all that. I've been doing the best I know how. When I decided to do this, I got with my husband and I said, you know, honey, I really feel like this is important, and he was all for it. I mean, if I can get my husband to wear a wig and pretend to be Zulema, he loves me and he knows how important this is to me, and he appreciates all the rays on here. We're just a good old country couple from Tennessee. We love all of the rays on here, and we want justice through understanding. Yeah, I heard about that, NF Mom. I could have jumped on a plane and went up there, but, you know, I have faith. I have faith in Cresha. I've met her family, and I've met her and spent time with her. She's strong. She's a strong woman. She's not going to let anything get in the way of anything. I always say, Cresha is my Louisiana sister. They're my Louisiana family. I want them to come to Tennessee when they can, hopefully. Her and Jason and Larry and Kay, if they want, their family. I'll do everything I can to make their visit very healing and loving. Hi, Stella F. T.S. Jackson 72, I know who all's been on here trying to help me along and also educating me. So I want to thank all of y'all. Y'all been so good to me. I don't deserve it, but I'm just so thankful. Maria P says, I'm proud to be a Ray. My prayers are with all the victims. Oh, Jay Gaz mom, I don't know. I'm always one of those ones that say, if something's meant to happen, it will happen. I'm a firm believer. It's not about anything that I make happen. It's about just things falling into place. Good evening and good night, Jean Fatou. Yeah, right, Kim Top. I would have been kicked out. I knew. I absolutely knew. I mean, number one, the reason that me and Wayne decided not to go was because we knew this was some serious stuff. And we didn't want to be in the middle of all that with Kay and Larry and Krisha and their extended family having to, this was going to be hard for them. And who are we anyway? But the other reason is honestly, y'all, I wouldn't have been able to trust myself. And I'm pretty good at trusting myself. But if I'd have seen Melanie Gibb walking up them stairs with that hat and, coming in I would have had to at least say something to her. Well, Jax, you're probably going to hear me say Lori is a hussy all damn week long. Y'all know it's just the way it is. She is a hussy. Once a Ray, always a Ray, because a Ray is research analysis in you. It doesn't necessarily have an attachment here to this channel. It goes on and on and on. You seek justice through understanding, and justice through understanding is whatever you define it to be. That's right, K-Tech. That's right. How many times have I said K-Tech or T.S. Jackson 72 or Maria P or Language of Horses, or so many times over the last 2 years. You think so, Maria P, that Melanie Pulaski will be the next to be called to the stand? Well, usually we get some idea, when someone's in town. We knew, we had heard Kobe was in town. Lo and behold, Kobe ended up on the stand. Then we heard Melanie Gibb. Nate Eaton heard about it. We knew she was coming in. That's right, Valerie Moore. Lori is a hussy, and Chad is a big chin. I was thinking, y'all, of some ideas for my next skit. I think that I'm going to do a Chad and Lori holding hands walking into Hobby Lobby. What do y'all think? And then maybe have like a bag of stuff and show y'all the things that Lori and Chad got at Hobby Lobby. They're walking into a Hobby Lobby knowing those kids are murdered, that Charles was murdered, that Tammy was murdered. That was November the 1st, Hobby Lobby. I've got some great ideas. Maybe, I don't know. I always had to put in there, no kids allowed, because y'all know how crude I get. But I think many of y'all understand where that's going, huh? Huh? What do you think Lori and Chad got at Hobby Lobby, huh? Don't say they're Hawaiian lace, some kind of, that's a possibility. But I think there were other things they were hoping for in Hobby Lobby. What do y'all think? What do you think? All right, Sunny D. You need some Kit Kats next week. Give me a break. And by the way, some of y'all are new on here, but the Rays know it. I went up to Nashville and I met this woman who goes by the name on YouTube, Red Handed. They have a band, her and her husband. And she got me this, y'all. It's a flask that says, "Give me a break." She gave it to me as a gift. It's never been used, though. Not to say I might not, but since John Pryor has to use his flask, I might leave it empty for a while. What do y'all think? And I also got a pink hat that says, "We're once again together, you and I," which is what the Rays know from day one. They helped develop me, really. It was the Rays that came on when I'd never been on YouTube before, and they came, and they, even when I messed up, even when I sounded stupid, they were right there to help me through, educate me, be emotionally supportive, and help me move forward in it. If it wouldn't have been for the Rays, I would have never reached out to even try to meet Kresha and Larry and Kay, and I wouldn't have, all the things that happened over this last 2 years up to this trial. It's because of the Rays on here. Had nothing to do with me, although I was an active participant. And yes, we're going to be together every day until this trial is over, y'all. And I just thank all the Rays. Y'all mean everything to me. You'll be part of my life for the rest of my life. And I love you all. Y'all mean the world to me. I can't say that enough. Susan Purdy. Oh, I have. When I started bringing up my little skits where I took some white Play-Doh and pretended it was stiffened mashed potatoes under her cell bed there, and how she shaped it into a certain shape for later use. And then when she uses it, all she has to do is add water and then she can eat it. Oh, I love all of y'all. You know I do. Hi, Yin Yang. Yin Yang on here is our channel poet and has blessed us with so much beautiful poetry. What many of the people that are not usually on here don't realize, and this sounds kind of obsessive and weird, but I print off all these Rays comments, and they're in my home, and I'm hoping to put them all together towards something important. If anything ever does happen, it will all be to benefit the Kresha K. Easton of Difficult Research and their extended family. I've been considering writing a play. I know that sounds silly to y'all, but I consider myself a playwright, and anything down to the penny would go toward Kresha K. Easton and Difficult Research. I hope that will come together. Don't know if it will or not, but I want to write a play, and see how it turns out. I mean, now I know that Mark McGarry, he wrote this song in honor of JJ and Tylee, and trust me, I don't know the musical notes of it or how he wanted it expressed, but that was just me trying to bring out the spiritual nature in it from myself. But I could see this play being a musical in their honor, and every penny would go toward Kresha K. Easton of Difficult Research. That's something I was thinking of trying to do. We'll just see how it works out. But anyway, I will do my best. If I do write a play, I'll make sure that everyone is in on it, can see it developed, and most importantly, the play will be copyrighted to Kresha K. Easton of Difficult Research. I'll be the ghostwriter. What do y'all think? You think I could do good on that? It isn't about taking credit for anything. It's about the motivation behind what you do. It has to have love. It has to have truth. And I love you all so much. I hope y'all are having a great weekend. We'll get back together on Monday. Be looking, y'all. I got to be in the mood for it. But that skit's going to be coming here pretty soon. Thank y'all again for all being here. And we'll get back together Monday morning. Be there, y'all. I'm counting on you. So I love you all. Keep on looking.